And speaking of all that, let's get like an overview for anyone tuning in who hasn't heard about Parallel, doesn't know what it is. What's the short and dirty of what you guys are doing?
Okay, so let's see if I can hone my inner pitch meeting self here. And
Just imagine 75 people in an elevator, all
yeah,
naked because that'll make you less nervous, and then pitch.
yeah. Luckily, I don't get that nervous because I mean, I used to play in a rock band, and I'm used to doing dumb stuff on stage in front of people. So I'm no problems. But essentially, what we've tried to do is. From my perspective anyway, is we're leveraging the NFT and blockchain technology to sort of bring back the experience of one of my favorite things. Let me rewind for a second. One of my favorite things in the world when I was a kid was to go into a comic store or a collectible store and just look in the magic glass case and be like, I want that card, and I want that card, and I want that card.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is kind of bring that feeling back, but in the digital space, because a lot of other games, which I love, by the way, MTG and Hearthstone, it almost feels like you're leasing the resources, like you're buying packs and you're getting cards, but once you have them, if you don't need them or you wanted to trade them or sell them or whatever, you're out of luck. And so what we're trying to do is to make those resources tradable, sellable, etc. But we're also trying to progress the game a little bit too. So, in Magic, they're the granddaddy. They came up with most of the fun stuff that we do today. But a big problem
Like
was
playing
either
blue
getting
decks.
my favorite. But one of the biggest problems was either getting mana flooded or mana starved, and then you can't really plan ahead too well. And then Hearthstone kind of iterated on that, and they said, okay, you know what, we'll give you 1 mana a turn, and that way okay, on turn 3 I can play a 3-cost card, at least by turn 3. So there was some certainty built in, and so we're trying to take that a step further. And make it slightly more cerebral so that your mana pool isn't just like a stagnant pool. It's in flux. It'll go up and down. Potentially, there's information that can be revealed from the mana pool, which we call the bank. And any of your cards in your deck can actually be used as mana. So you actually are immediately put to a choice where you have to decide, okay, am I going to use this card for its intended purpose, or am I going to bank this card for mana? And then how much information does this card give away if it gets revealed? And there's levels upon levels upon levels. And I think maybe Merchant can take over from there if he has anything else to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think just touching on the banking stuff, it's really interesting because it adds essentially like modal decision making to every single turn. Even very simple things like at the start of a game, it's like, say you start the game, you draw your opening hand, and you have a high cost card in there. You immediately face the decision of like, well, it makes more sense to bank this early on because I'm not going to be able to play it for a while. But, if I do manage to ramp up smoothly otherwise, this is a great card to have in hand.
Yeah.
So just introducing that layer of decision making into a system which traditionally I would say is something that the CCG genre has suffered from is a really interesting prospect, because instantly, in Magic, it's too random. The land system is just miserable. I think most people would agree that.
Yeah.
Without even getting into the things like, like land prices as well for formats. But land system is kind of miserable. And then in Hearthstone, I'd almost make an argument that it's too much the other way, where it's so automated that quite often you find Hearthstone being referred to as Curvestone, because it's like, well, you just play your max mana card each turn, more or less, right? So yeah, I think it's really interesting to be kind of pushing the envelope in that regard. And then of course we have the whole trading and collectability side that Koji touched on, which is really, really fantastic. And it's like, we're very open about this. It's something that, we've said from day one of me joining, at least. If you don't want to engage with this side of things, you don't have to. If you do want to engage with Parallel like it's a traditional digital card game, that option will be there for you. We're not going to punish you for doing that, but it's more about the potential of what we can do, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to digital collectability and trading, yeah, you can just bring back that feeling of being proud of the cards you own. Whereas, because I think one thing that's really interesting is in Magic Arena or, Hearthstone or something, like you open a card and I almost feel like instead of excitement, you sometimes just feel relief that you have to stop grinding to get that particular card.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, if you're taking part in the trading and the collectability, if you open an exciting card, even if it's not to your taste or what you want at the moment, it's still an exciting moment for you because you're going to be able to trade that. You're going to be able to convert that to cards you do want.
Yeah.
And yeah, bringing back, it's so interesting because yeah, it's bringing back the spirit of the mid 90s in a way with your cards actually being possessions that, yeah, you can trade, you can convert, etc. So yeah.
Well, and all that mixed with there's so much to unpack there because I think you guys are doing incredible stuff. I'm super excited about it. Exactly what you're saying is where you can own it, but having it be an NFT also injects kind of a speculative market into it as well that adds some interesting dynamics to owning those cards. So even if you pull something like if you're running like a red deck or in like Magic or I don't know all of your guys' factions offhand. But if you're running like an aggressive deck and then you pull something that's super defensive or super like regenerative or ramp focused, then usually you're like, okay, well, I can dust it in Hearthstone for like a penny or
very punitive.
Yeah, or in Magic Arena, like you can't do anything with it. You just kind of like sit on it, or I think their dusting's even less valuable. But then
there is no dusting in Arena.
Oh, it's just the chest, right?
System, which is the vault. So there's a wildcard system, which basically means for X number of packs you open, you get a wild card, right? Like a Joker that you can turn into any card of equivalent rarity. But there is no dusting. Like you open a mythic you don't like in Arena,
you're just out of luck.
Fun.
Yeah, that's terrible. But you guys doing what you're doing sounds like you can at least put it up on the market, and there's going to be someone who wants to run that deck with that card most likely. So kind of like you said, bringing the paper back into it. And I think
yeah, absolutely. It's something that's really interesting. Card game players will be quite experienced. Like, I mean, physical card game players. This isn't something new to them, but I think it is something that's pretty new to really see digitized fully. You know, Magic. The funny thing is, the only game that kind of comparatively does it in a big scale as to what we're talking about is Modo or Magic Online, which is the late 90s, early 2000s Magic Online client, which is still used today by a lot of Magic players. Which does have like card ownership and stuff, but it's quite a closed system. And basically what we're able to do, utilizing blockchain and whatnot, is take something that would typically only work as a closed system and open it up. Like if you open an exciting card and you want to sell it, and the point is it shouldn't be up to us to dictate what you do with that gain, right? Like you can withdraw it, do whatever you want with it.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think that it's also important to note that there's going to be people out there who are just interested in collecting. Like as a kid, I was really big into collecting Marvel based cards, and there was no game associated. I was just like, I need to get all these Marvel cards, right? And so there might be people who find enjoyment in collecting certain parallel cards. And so we don't want to, limit it in any way. People can own it however they see fit.
Absolutely. And to the polar opposite, if you just want to play an awesome card game, like we're here to cater for that too. Like,
for sure.
One of the things that we are so set on doing, and I know obviously because we're so early and because we're releasing all these awesome, exciting, rare versions of cards and stuff, and the packs today, everything is very kind of collection skewed right now, mostly. But yeah, like one thing that we're just so set on is we want you to enjoy Parallel however you want to enjoy it. And if you want to grind, as a player and not engage with any of that, go ahead. If you just want to collect awesome looking cards, that's an option for you too. So yeah, no one player of Parallel is lesser to a different kind of player to us, really.
It does sound like you guys are setting up a very flexible system, and also with the mana, circling back to that, it really made me think that I liked, when I played Magic, I like to build awful decks, like just homebrew the worst decks and see what would come out. I built like a Chromium deck, and it just was it was impossible to ever get Chromium out. But when I did, it was the best thing of all time. But,
I built a career on doing that.
Perfect. Yeah, because you've got a great YouTube channel. It's funny. I looked up your Twitter today, and in preparation for this, I'm like, oh, I've watched Merchant's videos. Like so that was kind of fun. But the flexibility, the flexibility in the mana system, I guess, is what I was getting at. Where it's like that seems like it would open up more homebrewing because you can you can really choose whether or not you want to keep your bombs in the deck, or if you can put them in for mana.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you know, when we don't have a land system, that opens up a lot more space in your deck fundamentally. I mean, we have 40 card decks, and there's a lot of space for creativity in those. And the nice thing with how the banking system works is you can create, this is getting into really sort of design heavy terms, but you can create multiple critical paths within a deck, i.e. ways of winning in a single deck. Because if one of them isn't working out, then you'll just prioritize banking the cards of that certain path.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good system for decision making in a card game, genuinely, which is everything, you know, because in a card games are such a fascinating genre to design, right? Because it's not like we're creating an FPS, and it's like, okay, well, the thing that will matter the most ever is how good you are with a mouse and keyboard, right? Like, you know, I'm starting to gray now in my late 20s, which is another point, but I'm starting to gray now. But like, if I go and play Counter-Strike against somebody who's never played it now, like those thousands of hours of my teenage years will pay off, and I'll just destroy them, right?
Yeah.
But in a card game, you don't have that like mechanical gap. Everybody is mechanically on the same level, which means it's all decision making. So the more you can enforce decision making as a core aspect of the game and take away like a loss of control and give players agency, the better. And the beautiful thing is striking that balance between chaos is fun, but decision making is what really drives the heart of a card game. So yeah.